Welcome once again, everyone, and we begin today's program with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
On Saturday, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune was confirmed winner of last week's election by the Constitutional Court, securing him a second term with a landslide 84.3%. The campaigns of rival candidate Abdullahi Hassani Sharif had previously alleged irregularities in the elections, but the court stated it had local voting data to settle questions about any poll misconduct. President Tebboune was first elected in December 2019 with 58% of the vote, despite a record abstention rate above 60% during the mass Iraq pro-democracy protests. He has since drawn criticism over his human rights record. Still on Saturday, where Ugandan Olympic athlete Rebecca Cheptegei's coffin arrived in her hometown of Bukwo. The athlete, who died after being doused in petrol and set on fire by her former partner, was buried and honored with full military honors. Mourners paid their last tribute at the funeral ceremony.
We are guilty as government, but also the community is guilty. Tuambiane ukweli, let's say the truth. It is not true that we did not know, even in the local community, that Rebecca was facing family problems.
I want to say polo to the family of Rebecca Cheptegei. It is really a sad moment in Uganda, athletics Uganda, and all of us friends. As we went to Paris with Rebecca, we really felt it because it was just 3 weeks we were together, and in the camp we stayed like 1 month. We were together, enjoying together, and it is really sad.
Cheptegei's tragic death sparked anger concerning high levels of violence against women in Kenya, particularly in the athletics community, with the marathoner becoming the third elite runner to allegedly die at the hands of a romantic partner since 2021. And on Sunday, hundreds of Tunisians celebrated the birthday of Prophet Muhammad with a vibrant music rally through the winding alleys of Tunis' old city. Prophet Muhammad was born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia in the year 570 AD. Muslims around the world celebrate Mawlid, or his birth, each year on the 12th day of the 3rd month of the Islamic calendar. The day is a public holiday in several Muslim-majority countries, including many parts of the Middle East, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Bangladesh.
Well, residents are struggling to survive after heavy rains triggered severe flooding in the northern region of Cameroon. The disaster displaced over 200,000 people, with 8,000 homes destroyed. Those displaced by the floods have been relocated to temporary camps outside the city. According to reports, at least 10 fatalities have been recorded, with majority of neighborhoods submerged. 185 primary schools and 13 high schools were also flooded, and over 1,100 livestock killed. The government has announced 350 million CFA francs in aid for the victims, though many locals consider this amount insufficient given the scale of the crisis. Well, here in Nigeria, let's bring you up to speed with the flooding in Borno State in the northeast of the country. The Borno State government is still counting the cost of the impact of the flooding, which caused significant damage to the state capital, Maiduguri, where many residents are urging donors to help in the efforts to rebuild the city. Hundreds of thousands of people were affected by the flooding, which was caused by damaged parts of the Alau Dam in Konduga local government area. Our environment correspondent, Ayola Kasim, in this next report looks at the impact of heavy rainfall on the dam just outside of the Borno State capital.
The fisher folks in Alu community are back on the Ngada River, the river that feeds the Alu dams. Many residents depend on the river for their livelihoods, and with the water level down, they are back at work. Located about 20 kilometers from Maiduguri city center, the collapsed dam is one of two in the area, and the one that has evidently been abandoned for years. The other were not allowed to film. The Earthfield Dam was overtopped after the heavy rainfall, with no solid spillway to control the passage of the surplus water over and around the dam. It is also not designed to permit uncontrolled flow of water downstream. What followed have been a disaster.
You are right, because we have problem of maintenance in the dam. We had a similar disaster 30 years ago, although the extent is not up to this one. But I believe the dam requires reconstruction.
Inadequate spillway has eroded the dam over the years. The last heavy rainfall washed off a side of the embankment, and the free flow of water still finds its way to the city. Back in the city, many are still counting their losses.
State Specialist Hospital Maiduguri. The flooding medical ward has been cleared, cleaned, disinfected, and some of the rooms have been fumigated. You can see the soakaway, the sewages have been mixed with the flooded water. So we're afraid of all these waterborne diseases. So we've taken care of that, and now it's fully functional. And also the maternity, amenity ward is also functional. It has been cleaned, it has been disinfected, and where there are needs of fumigation, it has been done, and patients are there receiving services. And we are now thinking of the oxygen plant. The water is still there, it's still waterlogged, but the water level has calmed down, and we are sure some of the machines have also been submerged. So we would like to have an assessment before we talk of maybe starting oxygen production. But certainly it's one of our lifelines, especially for our premature babies, those that are oxygen dependent. Actually, we depend on the machine.
Green Concern for Development, a not-for-profit organization which works with the poor and socially excluded people in Borno State, has paused its operations.
Our items, the wash items, nutrition items, our drugs, as we took those photos, they were all spoiled, and it has all been damaged. Our warehouse there has been submerged by water already. There are some other few items that were left we couldn't carry. They were all submerged by the flood.
With the dam still in the same state and climate changing, any delay in repairs means more lives are still at risk.
Now that we used to receive increasing volume of water into the dam, coupled with climate change, there's a need for us to increase the carrying capacity of the dam. You are right. And most importantly, siltation of the riverbanks and the waterways is also one of the biggest problems that we are facing. Another biggest problem that we are facing is human factors. Human beings do use to build houses right inside waterways. We stopped them. We demolished up to about 4,000, 5,000 homes. Some years back when I took over power as the governor of Borno State. But you know, in a democratic society, although I am resilient enough, people complain that we are trying to displace them. You know what I'm saying. So people thought that government is trying to displace people, but many have seen what has happened.
While some may argue that natural disasters are unfortunately a fact of life, neglecting to protect infrastructure to help people to cope with it is not right.
Many of the people here are just trying to rebuild their lives and livelihoods after more than a decade-long insurgency. For them, this is one disaster too many. Some even fear the outbreak of waterborne diseases and feel the odds are just against them. But will the authorities do the right thing? Well, only time will tell. From Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
The war in Sudan is still a concern for many, as the United Nations Population Fund describes the armed conflict as one of the ugliest situations ever witnessed. According to UNFPA's Arab States Regional Director, Leila Baker, 26 million people in the war-torn country are now facing famine, and over 10 million people displaced due to the ongoing war between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces.
I've been working for 30 years in the UN, serving mostly in a humanitarian capacity. And we all know that war is ugly, but this is one of the ugliest situations that I have ever witnessed in my entire life, certainly in my professional one. If I describe to you the situation on the ground where women and girls have been stripped bare of all of their basic necessities, picture thousands of women crowded into a shelter where they have no clean water, no hygiene, not enough food for their next meal, no medical care. For those women who have been displaced, and we now have over 10 million people displaced in Sudan alone after 500 devastating days of conflict and war. For those women and girls, they are looking to the international community, and in particular to UNFPA, to provide for them. Slightly over half of the population, 26 million people strong, are now facing famine. For the 600,000 pregnant women, 18,000 are likely to die as a result of that famine. They don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And in providing for that level of devastation, 26 million people is roughly the population of Australia. You can understand the pressures that we're coming under. And so it is very urgently needed, one, to provide a cessation to the hostilities so that we can put a halt to the devastation, two, to allow for humanitarian needs and humanitarian access that's unhindered and unimpeded so that we can provide our mobile clinics, get people in to begin to rebuild the country. And then third, bring women and girls back into the fold as well to get not see them only as recipients, but also as the agents of change for that peace that they so desperately wish for.
Junta-led states Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso have announced plans to launch a new biometric passport in the coming days. This was relayed by Malian junta leader Colonel Assimi Goïta, who said that a new biometric passport of the alliance will be put into circulation with the aim of harmonizing travel documents in our common area. Since 2020, the three Sahel nations have undergone military coups, and in September last year, united under the Alliance of Sahel States, allowing their split from France. This move marks another step by the junta-led nations to reinforce their alliance after breaking away from the Economic Community of West African states. It remains unclear how the new passports will affect the travel of their nationals to other ECOWAS states where they enjoyed visa-free movement as holders of a 15-nation regional passport. Everyone, let's get more on the flooding in Cameroon, and joining us via Zoom is Peter Kuma, a journalist from that country. Hello, Peter. Great to have you today.
Hope you are getting this time.
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, so let me just put in the question. We see over 200,000 people displaced following the heavy flooding. How are residents coping amidst this disaster, with many unable to meet basic needs such as food and shelter?
The recent floods in Cameroon have resulted in the displacement of over 200,000 people, as you earlier said. These are government sources who announced it this Friday. It was the Minister of Territorial Administration, Mr. Paul Atanganji, who gave these figures. And these recent floods have created a humanitarian crisis that has left many struggling to meet their basic needs. Many families have lost their homes, forcing them to seek refuge in temporary shelters, such as schools or community centers. These shelters are often lack adequate facilities, exposing these residents to harsh weather conditions and increasing their vulnerability. Flooding has destroyed crops and disrupted local food supply chains, leading to several shortages. The displaced individuals often have limited access to food, with many relying on emergency aid that is insufficient to meet their needs. The crowded conditions in temporary shelters increased the risk of diseases outbreak, including waterborne diseases like cholera. Limited access to clean water and sanitation facilities exhibits health risks for the displaced populations. Many residents have lost their means of livelihood due to the destruction of agricultural and local businesses. Without any income, families are struggling to afford basic necessities, including food, clothing, and healthcare. The trauma of losing homes and livelihoods has significant psychological effects, leading to the increase of levels of stress and anxiety among the affected individuals. Community support networks are strained as many are dealing with their own losses. Various NGOs and government agencies are working to provide emergency relief, including including food distributions, medical assistance, and temporary shelter. Local organizations are mobilizing to support families in need, offering resources and assistance to rebuilding efforts. There is an urgent need for sustainable solutions to prevent future flooding, including improved drainage systems and community education on disaster preparedness. The situation remains critical here in the far north region of Cameroon, and continuous support is essential to help displaced residents rebuild their lives and meet their basic needs amidst this disaster.
Right, Peter Akum, a journalist from Cameroon, and thank you for the update on that situation where flooding has devastated many homes and families. Well, elsewhere, South Africa's plan to attract more professionals to its skill-starved economy through the introduction of a nomad visa for remote workers has been slowed by the need to amend tax regulations. The impediment comes after an initial delay when changes to the visa regime had to be temporarily withdrawn because mandatory public consultation procedures hadn't been followed. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced his intention to introduce a remote working visa in his 2022 State of the Nation address. The country's Home Affairs Minister, Leon Schreiber, says that there's just a tax-related matter that needs to be addressed in the regulations. Once that's done, the department will commence with the rollout. South Africa's Byzantine work permit regime, which means that securing a work permit can take well over a year, has been flagged as a hurdle to economic growth by both the presidency and the country's main business organizations. Well, China continues to build on its relations with Nigeria following the successful completion of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation held in Beijing. This weekend, the Chinese consulate in Lagos celebrated the founding day of the People's Republic and Nigeria's Independence Day, which happened to fall on the same day. Interestingly, it was double celebration this weekend as China also celebrates its Mid-Autumn Festival. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Amrachi Bani, reports.
It is the start of another festival in China, and for those in Nigeria, there's no being left out of the Mid-Autumn Festival. Also known as the Moon Festival or Mooncake Festival, the Mid-Autumn Festival is a harvest festival held on the 15th day of the 8th month of the Chinese lunisolar calendar with a full moon at night. It usually comes up around mid-September to early October of the Gregorian calendar. The festival is characterized by lots of singing and dance presentations, reflecting on love for the motherland and appreciation for the culture. After a formal welcome from the Chinese Consul General in Lagos, Ms. Yan Yuqing, opportunities given for speeches from the Nigerian hosts.
Our gathering here today is not only a celebration of China's national day and cultural heritage, but also an opportunity to examine the evolving partnership between Nigeria and China, particularly in the area of industrial development.
Since the celebration also corresponds with commemorating the Chinese and Nigerian national days, the famous dragon dance is performed by Nigerians, reflecting the country's acceptance of Chinese culture and traditions. As is the same with other dances. Nigerians who have perfected their knowledge of Mandarin display their proficiency by conversing on stage.
今天在我这边的开心，
当然了，
这边的激动，
应该的。
那么首先呢，
There is even a performance of a Nigerian, now considered a celebrity in China. The Chinese Consul General Yan Yuqin later explains why it is important to share celebrations with Nigeria.
Today, I think that Nigeria and the Chinese people, yes, we can share this moon cake. It means that we share the harmony, the symphony of our mutual culture and deepen our friendship.
China considers Nigeria its #1 trading partner in Africa and looks forward to further strengthening of ties through mutual cooperation. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
Indeed, Nigeria remains close to the heart of the U.S. government, which wants to see the country succeed democratically as well as developmentally. This was highlighted in a reception at the Consul General's residence in Lagos for the new U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills, Jr. In attendance were government officials, traditional rulers, fellow diplomats, members of the business community, alumni associations, and Nigeria's creative industry. Ambassador Mills, in his address, spoke about the U.S. partnerships with Nigeria and his desire to keep growing them during his stay in the country.
A real privilege to represent the United States in Nigeria. Nigeria is a place that I've long admired from afar for its culture, for its very warm and welcoming, outgoing people, and its immense potential. I don't need to tell you that Nigeria, the largest economy on the continent, the largest democracy, an anchor state for the future of this continent, is an important partner. And the United States wants Nigeria to have a bigger role and a bigger voice in world affairs, because we share the same values, we see the world in many of the same ways. So I'm very happy to be here at the instructions of the Secretary of State and President Biden to help encourage Nigeria to step up and speak loudly, can speak frankly to us. We're friends. Friends can sometimes be frank and feisty, but always we know that Nigeria and the U.S. are in the same place and look at the world the same way. As ambassador, I can tell all of you, I am committed to strengthening our collaboration in areas old and in these new areas. And I very much look forward to hearing your ideas tonight and future visits on how we can collaborate better. And of course, let me end by saying our bonds together are not just government to government, they're people to people. And the connections between the Nigerian and the American people are deep and they're strong. I'm very proud that every year over 17,000 Nigerian students choose to study in U.S. colleges and U.S. universities. And on any given year, there are over 400 Nigerians participating in U.S. government exchange and fellowship programs. Many alumni are here tonight, and that means a great deal to me too.
That's Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.